Laudetur Jesus Christus. Vatican and World News.
In the headlines this Sunday, May 9th, Pope Francis calls for an end to violence in Jerusalem as Israeli police clash with Palestinian protesters. Ukraine accuses Russian-backed separatists of killing Ukrainian troops in the country's east, and churches in Rome kick off an initiative to celebrate the cultural heritage of the EU's 27 member states. In the Vatican, I'm Devin Watkins. Pope Francis today called for an end to violent clashes that have rocked the holy city of Jerusalem in recent days. I pray that the city may be a place of encounter and not of violent clashes, a place of prayer and peace, said the Pope. He reminded everyone to seek shared solutions so that the multi-religious and multicultural identity of the holy city might be respected and that fraternity might prevail. Violence only generates more violence, he concluded. Enough with the clashes. As Nathan Morley reports, the situation in Jerusalem has worsened since Friday.
This is the latest in a series of violent confrontations which has coincided with the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. The unrest was sparked when Israel blocked off a popular area where Palestinians traditionally meet at the end of their day-long fast. That sparked a fortnight of clashes before Israel finally recanted and lifted the restrictions. But the clashes resumed last week after Israel threatened to evict dozens of Palestinians from a district of East Jerusalem. Palestinians have held nightly protests in the area against an attempt by Israeli settlers to take over Arab homes there. On Saturday, protesters chanted, waved Palestinian flags and threw stones before police moved in. Now, in the latest violence, at least 136 people were wounded at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound and elsewhere in Jerusalem. According to the Palestinian Red Crescent, most were hurt after being hit in the face and eyes with rubber bullets. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas said he held the Israeli government responsible for the unrest. Meanwhile, Turkey's President Tayyip Erdogan denounced Israel as a cruel terrorist state in a speech in Ankara on Saturday. He called on the United Nations to intervene and stop what he described as being the persecution. Washington, too, has expressed deep concern about the tensions and called on all sides to work together to de-escalate them. For Vatican Radio, this is Nathan Morley reporting.
Pope Francis also noted that many countries are marking Mother's Day on Sunday, so he sent a warm greeting to all mothers.
E non possono mancare le mamme.
We greet all mothers of the world, even those who have passed away, said the Pope. A round of applause for mothers. Continuing his remarks after the Regina Coeli prayer, the Pope recalled several tense situations in global affairs. He prayed for the victims of a terrorist attack in Afghanistan. More than 50 people were killed on Saturday in Kabul, most of whom were students leaving a girls' secondary school. Pope Francis called it an inhumane action and urged everyone to pray for the victims and their families. The Pope went on to express his concern for the violent clashes and social tension gripping Colombia. Dozens of people have died and hundreds have been injured after protests broke out in the Latin American nation on April 28th. The protests were sparked by a government-proposed tax reform, which has since been withdrawn. The movement now includes calls for better health care, education, and pensions.
Sono tanti colombiani qui, preghiamo per la vostra patria.
Pope Francis lamented their deaths and asked everyone to pray for Colombia. The Ukrainian military says 2 soldiers were killed and another was wounded this week under fire from Russia-backed separatists. The hostilities in eastern Ukraine have seen an uptick in recent months, with Russian forces amassing along their shared border before reportedly pulling back. As Stefan Boss reports, several foreign ministers and Ukraine's president have visited the region amid the rising tensions.
Ukraine's government and the West have expressed alarm about a flare-up in violence between Ukrainian forces and Russia-backed separatists in eastern Ukraine. They have been fighting since 2014, but in recent days several Ukrainian soldiers were killed and the military says scores of troops died this year alone. Russia claims it has no military presence in eastern Ukraine and vehemently denies wrongdoing. But critics say it fueled new tensions this year by massing troops and with large-scale military exercises near its border with Ukraine. Amid the tensions, Ukraine's president marked the anniversary of the end of World War II in Europe by visiting a village along the Russian border, where hostilities escalated during the recent Russian military buildup. President Volodymyr Zelensky visited the village of Milovo in eastern Ukraine, accompanied by ambassadors from the European Union and the group of 7 wealthy nations. Earlier, foreign ministers from Belgium, Netherlands and Luxembourg visited the conflict zone in eastern Ukraine before meeting with Ukraine's president and foreign minister in what they called a show of support to Kiev. Separately, Ukrainian President Zelensky met U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who told the president that Washington supports Ukraine's battle for sovereignty against what it views as Moscow's aggression.
We stand with you against aggression. We stand with you, too, as you work to strengthen your democracy, build your institutions, combat corruption, and advance reforms.
Zelensky said he appreciated the U.S. support for Ukraine's independence and sovereignty. However, more than 14,000 people have died in the conflict, and negotiating a political settlement has stalled. Tensions also remain high over Russia's annexation of Ukraine's Crimean Peninsula in 2014, which sparked Western sanctions. For Vatican Radio, I am Stefan Bos, reporting.
Catholics in France are taking up the call to show solidarity with Eastern Rite Catholics today as a way of strengthening bonds between Western and Eastern Christians. The French Catholic Association L'Œuvre d'Orient is holding its 4th International Day of Solidarity with Eastern Christians on Sunday. Catholics are invited to join in prayer with Eastern churches in communion with the Bishop of Rome. The initiative recalls that many Eastern Rite Christians face persecution and still fight for survival in a number of countries in the world. A French bishop heading up the initiative says the history of Eastern Christians is the history of European civilization, that of the Egyptians and Mesopotamians, the Bible, and of Greeks and of the Romans. He adds that without this history, Europe would not be able to understand its roots or its present situation. Catholics are therefore invited to pray for the intentions of the day or participate in a virtual novena of prayer. The Justice and Peace Network of England and Wales is gearing up to hold its annual conference in July, which will focus on the need for a global ecological conversion. The 43rd annual conference will take place in late July in Derbyshire on the theme 2021 Life on Earth, Moment of Truth. The event will convene ahead of the UN Biodiversity Conference and the Climate Conference, or COP26. The conference will push for fossil fuel disinvestment by more church groups as part of the rise of institutional shareholder activism. Churches will be encouraged to join the sustainability revolution and demonstrate in liturgies that there is engagement with the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. The aim is to launch a decade of transformative action in lives and communities. The conference will discern how to deepen commitment to build a world where all of God's creation can live in peace and prosperity. Separately, the Iter Europeum initiative got underway today in Rome, celebrating 50 years of diplomatic relations between the Holy See and the European Union. The initiative sees several churches in Rome exhibiting their special links to a single EU member state. The first 3 highlighted were the Santi Quattro Coronati, showcasing Latvia, St. Clement's focusing on the Czech Republic, and Santo Stefano Rotondo on Hungary. The EU's ambassador to the Holy See, Alexandra Valkenburg-Rolos, spoke to Vatican Radio about the initiative, which is called A Walkway of European Churches.
There will be 8 consecutive Sundays. We will have do part of these walkways where we will start with a mass and then visit some of the other churches.
For the citizens and the people who are not here in Rome, how can they follow this initiative?
Well, let me just first say that if you go to the churches, you will see a totem explaining a bit of the relations between the church and the country, and also something about the diplomatic relations between the EU and the Holy See. Then we have a guidebook and a website. So in that way, both when you're in Rome or whether you're outside, you can enjoy this walkway. The internet link is itereuropeum.eu.
Do you have a personal message to our listeners about this initiative, 50 years of relationship between EU and Holy See?
I'm really proud that we were able to organize this event, which in a way COVID-proof in this situation. We were looking for a way to celebrate these 50 years of diplomatic relations. So I hope all the listeners go to the website and if they're in Rome, walk part of the walkway, because I think it's a really interesting way to experience Rome and to get to know something about the diplomatic and the historic ties that we have, and the very rich joint history that Europe and the Holy See have.
That was EU Ambassador to the Holy See Alexandra Valkenburg-Roloffs speaking there to Vatican Radio's Mario Galgano. Returning to the Regina Caeli, in his catechesis ahead of the Marian Eastertide prayer, Pope Francis reflected on what it means to abide in Jesus' love, saying it is best expressed in self-giving service to others.
Ci invita a rimanere nel suo amore.
Jesus, said the Pope, invites us to abide in his love so that his joy may be in us and our joy may be full. He said this love has its origin in God the Father, who is love, and flows like a river through Jesus, his Son, to us.
L'amore che Gesù ci dona è lo stesso con il quale il Padre ama lui.
The love Jesus gives us is the same with which the Father loves him, pure, unconditional, freely given love, said the Pope. By giving it to us, he added, Jesus treats us like friends, making us know the Father, and he involves us in his same mission for the life of the world. Pope Francis went on to say that we remain in Jesus' love by keeping his commandments. In the same passage of John chapter 15, Jesus summarizes his commandments with the words, that you love one another as I have loved you. Pope Francis said loving like Christ means going beyond our own selves and opening up to those in greater need.
Significa mettersi sempre al servizio.
To love as Christ means to put yourself at the service of your brothers and sisters, said the Pope. It means making ourselves available as we are and with what we have. This means to love not in word, but in deed. Pope Francis noted that loving like Christ requires us to put aside other loves offered by the world, like the love of money, success, or power.
Queste strade ingannevoli di amore, fra virgolette.
These deceptive paths distance us from the Lord's love and lead us to become more and more selfish, narcissistic, and overbearing, he said. And being overbearing leads to a degeneration of love, to the abuse of others, to making our loved ones suffer. The Pope added that he was thinking about the many women who suffer unhealthy love that becomes violence. He said this is not love.
Amare come ci ama il Signore vuol dire apprezzare la persona che ci sta accanto.
To love as the Lord loves, he said, means to appreciate others and to respect their freedom, to love them as they are, gratuitously. It also means overcoming the ambition to control others and instead giving ourselves to others. Finally, Pope Francis invited Christians to abide in Jesus' love so that our joy may be full.
La gioia di saperci amati da Dio.
The joy of knowing we are loved by God despite our infidelities enables us to face the trials of life confidently, he said. Our being true witnesses consists in living this joy because joy is the distinctive sign of a true Christian. And he concluded the Regina Caeli address praying that the Blessed Virgin Mary might help us abide in Jesus' love and grow in love for everyone, witnessing to the joy of the risen Lord. That brings us to the end of this edition of Vatican and World News. For more on these and other stories, go to our web portal at www.vaticannews.va. There you can also find all of our broadcasts in podcast form. And don't forget to catch the latest updates on our Facebook page and Twitter feed. In the Vatican, I'm Devin Watkins.